So here we go with a bit of an experiment in super close-up videoing and painting here. This is the epic Dreadnought which I've been working on, and as a sort of an experiment I've got a whole set of about 6 of these little guys. The idea being that I get a test on my 6mm army in terms of the colour scheme. I was using the live colour. See if these will come into focus. Yeah, the live colour range of paints for the Panzer grey, so they give you the 3 shades in the box. And in terms of how it's been completed on here, you can see I airbrushed them, and underneath you have that dark shade running through to the lighter shade on top, which is sort of like a very basic paint scheme at 6mm, because you basically do a top-down light to dark rather than worrying about individual panels on here. So you can see how that works again on the side here. You can see that you've got the darker blues underneath, and on the back the very dark underneath, leading up to the lighter on the top. So all I'm doing now is just a simple next step, which is a very quick one, using an enamel wash called brown blue. Enamels go over the top of acrylics very well, they're friendly with each other. So once you've done that base airbrushing, you can go straight on top with a wash. The only thing you have to be careful with enamels, if you're using a blend of different enamels, so you might be using a rust effect or something as well. In fact, I'll give you an example. The MIG range of rust effects, like this one here, the standard rust, which you can use to add detailing, again works much better in the larger scale of models. Obviously on a small 6mm you needn't go to the big extent of doing rust streaks, because you're not going to see them very well. But if you were, as the point I was trying to make, going back on later on with a different enamel wash, you just have to be careful if you're using things like thinners on the brushes, because the thinners will pull any previous washes off. They won't touch the acrylic, which is the base paint, but they will start to pull the others off. Now that's actually a benefit sometimes, because you might want streaking, you might want the dark enamel washes to blend with the rust effects. So it's just something to bear in mind. If you're going to use thinners and you end up using those thinners over the top of a previous enamel, you can pull it off. Now some things you can do to help prevent that: you can obviously leave the model for a couple of days, because I don't know if anybody remembers the old days of Humbrol enamels when you were a kid. Obviously you can still get them now, but I used to do model aircraft with Humbrol enamels, and they do take a long time to dry compared to acrylics that are dry in just minutes really, or even less than that. Here's a quick painting tip for you. If you use these plastic tracer tool to do your mixing in, get some silver foil and place it over the top, and it just saves you a lot of bother. So I'll just move that out of the way. You can see the silver foil in there. In fact, you can see the paint that I'm going to use there too. That's the filter, the blue Panzer grey filter. I've put some into that bottom of that there, and you can just see I'm almost pouring it out there. It's quite a bluey tone, but I have got some thinners in another pot here, which I will use to thin down that paint. And I'll just show you going on with this and what it does to the model when it's painted on. Also, just out of interest, I've got here a Corsair Engineering base, which is an acrylic base for flight stand basically. I just find it very handy because it's got a magnet on the top, and I'm using steel metal bases for these models, so it just clamps underneath there very nicely. Just gives it something very handy to hold. You can move the figure up and down. Again, you can see that darker colour underneath running through to the lighter shade on top there. A little bit tricky in front of the camera, but there you go, through to the light shade on top. So here we go. I've got a small amount of thinners on this brush, which you can see I'm working on in the background there, and some of that blue filter. A filter is like a very light wash anyway. It doesn't really cover the model. It's meant to, well, that's not the right word. It's obviously transparent so that it goes on as a filter rather than going on as a stronger ink, which might black out some of the areas. So as you can see, and I'll just put some in there, and it gives it that really strong blue tone as it goes on. Now this is going to look wet for quite some time because it is an enamel paint. When the thinners and things are dried out in there, it will obviously dry matte, but at the moment it's going on with a very gloss look to it until it's completely dry. I'm trying to keep this in focus for you just so you can see the change in the colour. You can see that it's very blue, and what that does when it's dry, I'm going to leave these overnight actually, but it just gives you a uniform look to the whole paint job. So get on there with some more. In fact, the odd thing about this, it seems to be almost drying like just evaporating in front of me on the tin foil, but I will drop some more into there to finish the job. Now I'm not going on the bits that I've done some silver on, so I'm just sort of leaving that really. Now it doesn't matter also that I'm going over some detail areas like the sarcophagus on the front there, which has the little space marine in. I'm going over there, but later on the acrylic paint will go nicely back over the enamel, so I'll be able to do some detailing like bone highlighting if I want to show off that kind of little tiny 40k angel type emblem that's on the front there. So again, you can see here the dark coming through. Try not to shake things around too much, and coming through to the light on the top, and what that filter will do is actually provide a much more neat tone through that range. Now this is experimenting, it's 6mm scale obviously, so I'm not 100% sure that the result will be perfect for me. I'm in the middle of doing a sort of epic scale micro army, and I'm just trying this as a technique. Obviously I was going quite slow there, but if you're doing a full army, it's about trying to find a technique that's fast and effective on a full army sort of size, so I can also come back later on when I'm doing more than just these few test ones for the video and do them much quicker. So that's that. What I shall do is just get some more of this blue for Panzer grey, because for some reason that's run out of that very quickly, evaporated with the thinners almost. So I'm just going to use a dropper. These droppers are available on eBay, very handy for doing paint transfer from one place to another without causing a big spillage and without filling your brush full of paint, which is never good either. So I've just dropped some of that in there. You can see the tone of it if I bring it around. There it is, a nice sort of blue. And in addition to that, I shall grab, where's it gone, my thinners, which I've just got a spare little old Tamiya pot. It's handy to have pots like this that you can reseal when you're working with things like thinners. I don't put it into the same pot, the same reservoir even as the actual wash or filter, because I just want to keep it separate so I can sort of dip into it. There we go, that's actually also starting to dry, but you can see again it's given it an overall blue hue. Blue hue, that's a difficult one to say. And I'll just pop another one on there. Just out of interest, I've now, from the previous video I did where I showed you that the decals were standing out and were quite glossy looking, I've used the Microsol setting solution, which breaks down and softens decals so that they sit nicely against and flush on there. And then I've also gone over with some micro flat, although any either a gloss varnish like the Games Workshop hard coat, or even a matte varnish like the Vallejo or Vallejo, however you want to say that, that can go on and matte finish the decal and protects it as well. Some people, when they're doing big models, they will, once they put the decals on, they'll spray the whole figure with either a gloss or a matte coat. I've not done that. I've just covered the actual decal because I'm not going for that sort of hyper realistic effect. So again, I'm just taking a bit of the thinners and some of the paint, mix them together because I don't want a really strong blue effect. Try and get that into focus, just so you can see the result of that going on there and how blue that is. And again, I'm going over the decal and everything on there. The only thing I'm not going on is the, as I said before, is the metal work that I put on there. And on the back as well, you can see the tone separation from those different Panzer grains on the back, and this will give it a nice subtle blue result to the whole thing. I mean, it's not going to make it Space Marine blue, but it will give it an equal sort of tone across the whole model, which should look quite attractive, especially when it goes into the tiny. Try and get that. You can see the small panel lines on the top, and this, because it is an enamel, it flows very much into all the little tiny nooks and crannies. So you can see how quick that is. I've kind of done it before I even knew I'd finished it, because it does flow around the figure. Now I reckon you could probably use some just a standard acrylic blue ink, but I've gone for this filter on the basis that it's the sort of technique that a lot of people are using. You can see nicely on the front of that one again, you've got the range of the Panzer Greys going to the light on the top. This guy's got two lots of weapons. For the 40k experts out there, they'll know what this is meant to be. I reckon that's meant to be like a stack of bolters, and that's how they've represented it in 6mm scale perhaps. So hopefully I'm not losing you from the image here. I don't want to wobble around too much. That's the benefit of having this base, is the grip it gives you when you're doing models of this size. I've seen professionals that paint, they paint these busts and things where they're precise, sort of maybe a medieval knight or something, and they'll also paint them on some sort of stand, and I don't think I can do that. If I went up to 28mm scale model, I just hold the base. It's not worth going for the magnetic holder or any other kind of holder really. Just go for the actual hold on to the bottom of a 28mm base. I know some people put them on models on corks and things. I'm not really bothered with that. I seem to be able to work okay holding on to a 30mm or 28mm base, but when it gets any smaller like this, I like the magnetic holder. So this is the first time I've used this filter, and I've used filter effects and washes before, but not this Panzer Grey, and not on this range of acrylics from Life Colour. And I'm quite happy that how that filter is applying, and it's giving it a nice subtle blue tone. For a while there I wasn't looking at the camera, so you may have had me going out of focus. So there again, really quick, done, off the magnetic base and on with the next one. So if I had a sort of mini factory line going here, in fact I'm only doing how many of these I got? 5. If I got 5 of these epic guys here. And so I will talk on. Just wanted to do a shout out really to say thanks for all the people signing up to the Miniature Addiction Google group. It's really, what do I want to say, it's kind of a non-specific group in the sense that people can sign up if they're into 6mm, 28mm, whatever scale, whatever miniature range that you do. I tend to mainly focus on 15mm, more recently looking at some 6mm models, but I'm also a big player of War Machine and a variety of other ranges of games. And specifically what I did with that the group on Google was to have an area where people could share painting tips, anything you like, but also talk about new games coming on the market. So rather than just the standard old ones that we always talk about, having a look at anything new that's coming through Kickstarter or Indiegogo. So that's my last one there. Actually, let's leave him standing there and twirl him around so you can see. I'm not sure how good the lighting's doing there for him, but it's not too bad. Well, obviously it's shiny. The other thing to note, obviously I've just now used an enamel wash. I've used this brown blue. Actually no, I wasn't using the brown blue wash. I was using the blue for Panzer Grey, so just before I got myself confused. Yeah, actually the wash, the enamel wash, in case I showed it earlier and didn't know what I was talking about, which is a high possibility, basically AK do the filters, which are the very fine filter which I just used on here, and then they also do this brown blue wash which is a lot darker and provides you with the darker, what can I say, you can put it into the corners and edges of panel lines, so that you get that much deeper, darker area. I think that's more appropriate probably if you're doing 15, 28 or even sort of 1/35 scale, because that is probably too dark a wash to just go straight on to these small 6mm figures. I think it would just, well, you'd end up with a brown blue dark looking blob, I think. But you never know, I might actually come back and use a very fine brush to go into the darker panels on there with this. I don't know, I'll see what I do. So thanks very much for listening in.